Hi, this is Richard Chamberlain. Welcome back to the Protecting Your Family's Future podcast. This is episode number 138. Today, we're going to be talking about the duties of the successor trustee when the trustmaker has passed away. Now, last week, we talked about what the successor trustee needs to do if the trustmaker becomes incapacitated. Today, specifically when the trustmaker dies, the duties are going to be similar but different. So, as we said last week, the first thing the successor trustee needs to do whenever they're taking over for any reason is review the trust document to see what the instructions are in the trust for what needs to be done with the assets in the circumstances that the trustee is taking over for. So, the trustee needs to understand who the beneficiaries are and how the assets are to be distributed, generally speaking, whether it's incapacity or at death. But particularly at death, the trustee needs to know who the beneficiaries are because usually, and this is going to be a state by state thing, I know in Ohio for sure, in Michigan for sure, the trustee needs to advise the beneficiaries that they are a beneficiary of the trust. Once it becomes irrevocable because of the death of the trustee is required to provide a copy of the trust to the beneficiaries and let them know that they are the beneficiaries. This person is serving as the trustee, and keep the beneficiaries informed throughout the administration process. So, keeping the beneficiaries informed and knowing who those beneficiaries are is going to be an important first step. You probably want to meet with an attorney to help guide you through this process, either the attorney that prepared the trust and worked with the trust maker throughout their lifetime, or maybe that person is not around anymore. You can really go to any attorney who's experienced in these matters to help you. But getting good professional guidance is going to be important because the attorney will be experienced in doing this, and maybe you've never done this before in your lifetime, so you don't know how to do it, and you need to get good advice on what to do and how to do it. Of course, the next thing you're going to need to be able to do is identify what the assets are. What assets are owned by the trust? What assets were owned by the individual? If they're individually owned assets, do they have beneficiary designations? Who are the beneficiaries? If they're payable to the trust, then you, as trustee, need to get those benefits payable to the trust and then manage them as trustee. They might be payable to a particular individual. And so that individual would need to claim those benefits and have them transferred to them directly. So identifying all of the assets and how are they owned is going to be important because there may need to be some things done to get control of those. You might have an individually owned asset that doesn't have a beneficiary, and so those might need to go through probate. Usually, there's going to be a pour over will that gives those assets to the trust, but that has to be done through the probate process. So, identifying all the assets, getting good values on those, and then, of course, providing that information to the beneficiaries is going to be important. The successor trustee is going to be responsible for paying the bills, for paying any taxes that might be due for the decedent. Usually, their final income tax return would need to be filed. There might be a income tax return that would be due for the trust. If a probate estate is open, there might need to be an income tax return filed for the probate estate. So you're going to need to be aware of those things and make sure that they're being addressed in a timely manner. Now, as I said, pay all of the bills. And then once all of the assets are determined and valued and collected, that is, they're under your control as the trustee, then it's going to be your job to give an accounting to all the beneficiaries. These are the assets that are part of the trust. These are the expenses that were paid, the taxes, the fees, and these are the assets that are going to be distributed according to the terms of the trust. And then, of course, you make those distributions to the beneficiaries. So having a kind of a roadmap to how the assets would finally be distributed is going to be helpful. And I think having a roadmap to the overall administration process will help guide you. If you know what needs to be done at the end, you know where you need to start and what needs to be done throughout that process. And of course, depending on what the assets are, how they're made up, how they're owned, the whole process can take several months or could take much longer. Every trust administration is going to be a little bit different depending on all those factors. So I hope that's been helpful for you today, and we'll see you again next week. Thanks.